Welcome everyone to visionrecordingstudios.com and Vision Recording CT, our YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about the 15 things that I like about Presonus Studio One Pro. And the reason why I decided to make this video is I've been talking to a lot of colleagues lately about in the recording industry about me moving over from Pro Tools and Cubase over to Studio One, and people always ask me, what do you like about it? What do you like about it? Why is it so good? What makes it better than the other programs? So on and so forth. And this is a real touchy subject, and everyone's got their own opinion, and everyone uses different DAWs, and I understand that. But I've only been using Studio One Pro for about 2 months, and so I thought this would be a great opportunity to just give a real quick, off the top of my head, the 15 things that I like about Studio One over the DAWs I was using in the past, primarily Cubase 5, that version. I don't have Cubase 7, and Pro Tools 10. And so this may help someone who is, searching to either get their first DAW and wanting to know what should they buy, and there's so many features, and everyone will give their own opinion about different DAWs, or for someone who is looking to maybe move on to something new. Maybe you've been a Cubase user for many years like myself and you wanted to try something new. Maybe you're a Pro Tools user and you want to try something new, or maybe you're having issues with those other programs or Logic or whatever. And so when I first got into Studio One, I did a lot of research on YouTube and stuff to try to find what makes this program so great, and so I thought if this can help someone, because there's not a lot of resources on YouTube for Studio One yet, because it's such a new DAW. It's only been around a few years as compared to like Pro Tools, which has been around forever. You can find thousands of videos on YouTube regarding Pro Tools and ways to work around inside of Pro Tools. There's not as many resources for Studio One, and because it's a new program, or a newer program, I should say. So I'm trying to help that cause by putting up some of these videos. And I'm a Studio One user now, and I really like it. And I just want to give someone who might be thinking about Studio One, or thinking about switching or getting into it for the first time, maybe some helpful information on why I think it's a good investment, and if for nothing else, to at least try it before passing it off as not a professional program. And I've heard that Presonus, Studio One is really not a professional program. It's more of like a toy, and that is so not the case. It is as much of a professional DAW as Pro Tools or Cubase or Logic, and I've used them all, and I can tell you this is on equal footing to all of those, and in a lot of ways surpasses those. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So some of the things I'm going to be able to demonstrate in a Studio One session, some of them I'm just going to tell you about. So I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but I want to go through the things that I really like about Studio One. So without further ado, the first thing that I like about Studio One Pro, for me, the number one thing that I looked for was stability. One of the things that I would always have issues with, especially with Pro Tools, and if you're a longtime Pro Tools user, you probably have had this experience at one time or another, but for me, Pro Tools was really a nightmare as far as stability. Constant program crashing, constant playback engine buffer size warnings, and just all kinds of just things that were problems for me and my system in Pro Tools. And I know lots of people use Pro Tools. I know it's the industry standard and has been for many, many years. And lots of people run them without any issues. I didn't have such luck. And I think I have a pretty powerful system. I use a 2010 Mac Pro Tower with a quad core processor, Intel processor, with 16 gigs of RAM. So I have a pretty high powered system, maybe not as high powered as the computers that are just coming out in 2013, but certainly not a slow computer by any means. Certainly way above the Pro Tools minimum standard for computing power that you would need to run the native system. And I had nothing but issues with that program, to say the least. So stability was a big thing for me, because I run a full-time recording studio. If you watch my other videos, you know that. And I deal with clients on a daily basis. I'm constantly on working on a deadline, writing music for television or film, commercials, so on and so forth. And I needed a DAW that was stable. And Cubase 5, on the other hand, which is 4 or 5 years old, that was a super stable program for me. I never, in the 5 or 6 years that I used Cubase, from the time that SX2 came out through Cubase 5, I could count on one hand in all those years the amount of times that that system crashed on me, regardless of the computer that I was running at the time. When I was running it on a PC, it worked beautifully. When it was running on a Mac, it was running beautifully. And the only reason why I moved away from Cubase is because A, I wanted to try something new. I used Cubase for many, many years. And two, because again, I'm a commercial studio, a lot of the clients and a lot of the records that I would mix for people would be recorded in other studios, and inevitably they would all run on Pro Tools. And so I wanted to have a Pro Tools rig as my second DAW after I got out of Cubase, so I can take in those Pro Tools sessions and work directly from them. And that was one of the reasons why I bought it. And again, it was nothing but a nightmare for me, but Cubase was a pretty stable program. But after having such a hard time with Pro Tools, I decided I wanted to move into something different. I could have just went back to Cubase. But one of the things I didn't like about Cubase, Cubase 5 is only a 32-bit platform. It can't take advantage of any of the extra memory that I have in my machine. And again, I have 16 gigs. And so I wanted to find something that was 64-bit compatible. And at the time, even Pro Tools 10 is not 64-bit. As the recording of this video in May 2013, Pro Tools 11 is still not quite been released yet, but that's supposed to be 64-bit. But one of the, they want $300 for you to upgrade from Pro Tools 10 to 11, which is a joke to me. We'll get into that a little bit later. So anyway, I was looking for something that was 64-bit and something that was very stable because again, I'm a commercial business. I need something stable. So Studio One, in my experience in the 2 months, and I've put it through its paces pretty good, it is as stable as Cubase ever was, and it's 64-bit as well. So that for me was number one. So if I had to say what's the number one thing that I was looking for, the number one reason why I like Studio One, it's very, very stable, unlike, again, my experience with Pro Tools. The second thing that I like about Studio One that I think is worth looking at is the cost. Studio One at the time of this video, May 2013, for the Pro 2.5 version is $399 versus Cubase 7, which is now out, which is $499. And versus Pro Tools 10 or Pro Tools 11, if you don't have version 10 and you want to buy 11 straight out of the box, is $699. And the other thing that I like about Studio One, so Studio One costs a lot less. And there's a lot of other things that come with Studio One that you don't get with Cubase and you don't get with Pro Tools and you don't get with Logic or some of these other DAWs. When I bought my version of Studio One Pro 2.5, I was using the Artist version that came with my Studio Live 16:4:2 mixer. And one of the things that I love about Studio One, we'll talk about it right now, you can see it on the screen, this home page when you first launch Studio One, is this thing called the news feed. And under here you can see all the different things that are going on. Right now they have a tune track promotion, they have a pure mixing competition, you can scroll down, they have 50% off their drum loops at Loop Loft, and all kinds of things that Studio One advertises for their users. Which again, you don't get in Cubase and you don't get in Pro Tools. And what I found when I was using Studio One Artist is right up in here, this area here, was a promotion at the time. I could have bought Studio One Pro for 33% off. And I said, wow, 33% off. That makes the cost of Studio One Pro for me $267. And I said, for $267, I'm buying it and I'm going to try it. So that was a fabulous deal. And I don't know if they'll be doing that again in the future, but Presonus always has all kinds of little deals here. And I love that on this homepage. I love the layout of this. You have all those little promotion things under the news feed. Okay. So that's the second thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was cost. First was stability. Second was cost. Studio One Pro is certainly a lot less money than some of the other popular DAWs. Now let's talk about what else you get with that $400 price tag that you don't get with, again, in my experience, Cubase or Pro Tools, or even Logic for that matter. A little bit about Melodyne. Melodyne, if you don't know what Melodyne is a, for lack of a better word, I guess a vocal tuning program, but it's really so much more than that. Melodyne is a program where, it's primarily, I guess, used for tuning vocals, but you can also tune instruments. You can create harmonies with vocals in Melodyne. There are so many things you can do with Melodyne that's just beyond tuning a vocal. And again, I'll do another video. This is not really a video about Melodyne by any means, but it's a video about, the things that come with Presonus Studio One that doesn't come with other DAWs. Melodyne on its own is a $289 plugin. If you were to buy that from Melodyne's website, or any third-party reseller at the time of this video, May 2013. Unfortunately, when I had Pro Tools about 6 months ago, I bought Melodyne, so I paid the $289. It comes with Studio One. So again, that's a fantastic piece of add-on, if you will, to Studio One. So not only do you get a $400 DAW, which is reasonably priced, you also get a $300 plugin along with it in Melodyne. The other thing that you get with Studio One that you don't get with other DAWs is a mastering package. To have a full-on mastering suite along with Studio One is beautiful. I mean, in the past I would have to mix down my songs in my DAW of choice, let's say Cubase for example, and then bring that 2-channel stereo mix into another mastering software, which I used to use Wavelab Element 7 made by Steinberg, which you could see right here in my dock. And that was a $99 or $129 program, and that was for the Elements version, which is not the full version of Wavelab. The full version of Wavelab, I believe, is between $300 and $400. So let's say even Elements is $100. So again, that's another $100 value that you get with Studio One that you don't get with other DAWs. So again, for $400, you get an additional $289 plugin in Melodyne, and an additional at least $100 mastering program with Studio One, which is great. So you're already looking at probably another $900 worth of value for $400, which is really again outstanding. So you get mastering as well. So that's the other thing that you get. And again, I'll do a video about mastering, but that's another thing that I love about having Studio One. The next thing I want to talk to about that we could probably, well, before we get to a demonstration, is the integration with Presonus hardware. As you know, I use Studio Live 16.4.2, and I've used Presonus hardware for many, many years. I love their hardware. Their hardware is rock solid. It's stable. It has great reliability, and the way it integrates with Studio One is really nice. It's really, truly plug and play. Plug the thing into the computer. Studio One recognizes it. It has templates, set up for your different, your different Presonus hardware. We'll get into that. You can see right here in the setup, it says I have the Presonus Fire Studio. That's what they call it. The Studio Live is really known as the Fire Studio here in Studio One, and you can configure it all. And depending on the, they have all kinds of templates when you create a new song. Here you can see the interfaces and all their different interfaces. And if you check the 16.4.2 and open up that session, it'll have all 16 tracks already, numbered, labeled, and ready to go. So the integration of their hardware with their software is really great too. It's another thing I really like about the Presonus stuff, the way it works well together. The next thing I want to talk quickly about is, as far as I know, and from what people have told me, their updates, when they update Studio One Pro, is free to their users. They don't charge you for updates. A lot of other DAW companies do. I know to go from Pro Tools 10 to Pro Tools 11, they want $300 for that upgrade, which is mind-boggling to me. I understand it's supposed to be a completely rewritten program, and it's like buying a whole nother piece of software. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm told. And if Presonus did the same thing with Studio One, maybe there would be a slight charge, but I would be willing to bet, even if they rewrote the entire program in Studio One and upgraded it, they wouldn't charge you $300 to go from Studio One 2.5 Pro to whatever's next. I don't know that for sure. I'm not affiliated with Presonus in any way. I don't have any inside information, but all their updates up to this point, if you own their software and have registered their software with them, are free, which is, again, another great little bonus and a reason to take a look at Studio One. The next item I want to talk about is the Presonus support, and I have firsthand experience with this. One of the things that I did not like about Pro Tools was their support is horrible, especially if you try to get a hold of Avid and talk to them about a problem that you're having. And I had lots of issues with Pro Tools, as I said, and so trying to get Avid to help you is almost impossible. And if you can get a hold of Avid, they want you to pay to talk to their technical support, which to me, again, is ridiculous. They do have a user community, much like Presonus does, and their user community at times was very helpful. There were some good people on there, so that wasn't a total loss. But what I really like about Presonus in general, and as I said, I've owned their hardware for years, and years ago I had a problem with one of their pieces of hardware. It was way back in the days of the FP10, if anybody remembers that, the 8-channel interface. which has been replaced by, I think, the Project Studio, which I've owned that at one time as well. And I had a problem with one of those units, and I was able to call up tech support at Presonus, talk to their technical support. They had me ship the unit in. They fixed it for me for a very nominal fee. I think the unit was 5 years old at that point. It was way out of warranty. But it was very easy to talk to somebody multiple times, and they were very quick to respond. I also know from combing around the Presonus forums and even some of my videos that I've put up recently, the Presonus guys have actually contacted me. They're online. They're checking things out. They're trying to help their users. So I know their support is really, really strong. And they have a wonderful user forum as well. But beyond the user forum, because, you know, Steinberg has user forums, Avid has user forums, and usually the communities are pretty good. But getting to the company directly is huge for me. And I'm sure anyone that's purchased a piece of gear or purchased anything in your life and you've had a problem with it, and if you ever had a problem where the company wouldn't stand behind their product, you know this is a huge feature. So I can tell you from firsthand experience that their support at the Presonus building out in Louisiana, you can get to their tech support, and they've been very, very helpful to me the couple of times that I've had to call them. Thankfully, I haven't had to use it too much because their products are really good and they don't break on you. But if you do have a problem or you do have an issue, you can get help, and that's huge for me. Again, especially being a commercial studio, I need to be up and running all the time. I can't have downtime. I can't have problems with gear. And if I do, I need a company that's going to be able to stand behind it. So again, another wonderful feature about Studio One is the support from Presonus themselves. So that's awesome as well. Okay, now I think we're ready to take a look at, because you probably heard me ramble for way too long. We'll take a look at an actual session here and just go through a couple of the things that I noticed right off the bat in the first week that I used this program, that I said this is better than anything that I've had in the past. You got to check out this program. The first thing I want to talk about is the Headroom, and what Headroom in this program is so much better. There's so much more headroom in this than in any DAW that I've ever used. And you could see over here, looking at this small little session of drums, you know, a couple of guitars and a bass and the keys, how low these faders are. And they, you know, you don't even have to bring them anywhere near 0 dB or Unity. There is so much headroom in this thing that you got to keep the faders low. You have a lot of throw in these faders, which is fantastic. And let me just give you a quick listen to what this session kind of sounds like, and you'll see what I mean. You won't hear my voice; the music will overtake this, but you'll see. I'll bring my cursor over here towards the meters over here for the instruments, and then I'll bring it over here to the main out, so you can kind of see how that kind of translates a little bit. But let me just give you a quick listen here. As you can see here, as I lower the main output here, you could see that the faders, everything is at a -11, -19, -19, -7 dB, and you're not clipping it all, and you get, so there's so much throw in these faders, which is fantastic. So that's another thing that I noticed right away about Studio One, that was just again a much better a much nicer feature than what you have in most other DAWs in my experiences. There's a ton of headroom, which is great. The other thing I really like about Studio One as we move on is the way you can, let's talk about the drag and drop feature, which everyone talks about. There's a million videos online about how wonderful this is, and it really, really is. Let's talk about just looking at our browser over here, our effects. You have, over here you have the browser, which I'm sure everybody knows about. You can click that on and off by clicking the browse button, and in here you have your virtual instruments, or the virtual instruments that I have. You have your effects here, where you can look at the vendors. And let's just look at Melodyne, because we talked about Melodyne earlier. So if you want to put an effect on a track or an insert, you know, there's a couple of ways to do it. The easiest way to do it is to go in here and to just say, okay, I want to take Melodyne and I'm going to put Melodyne on this bass track. So I have my bass over here. I'm going to take Melodyne and I'm just going to drop it right on the bass track. And Melodyne opens up. Wonderful, easy. You can't get any quicker than that. And if you open up the bass track here, you'll see that Melodyne was inserted here. I have other inserts here as well, but here's Melodyne. And to remove that, I can just click on the down arrow and hit remove. But say I wanted to put, I don't know, say a Presonus plugin, say I wanted to put an analog delay. And I wanted to do, you know, just the default, I guess. So you just take this, and again, it's just drag it. You could drag it right onto the track. You could drag it right down here in the insert bank. And there it is, analog delay. You could do that with any effect, any virtual instrument, anything. So again, it makes things very, very quick. The other way you could do this is just by, in the inserts, if you expand your track and you have your inserts, you can just, click on this little insert down arrow and you can do that as well. You could pick your effects and pick your presets from there. But the easiest way to do it is just to take it and drag it on there. So again, drop and drag or drag and drop, however you call it, to me, again, another really easy way, speeds up the workflow. Can't do that with any other DAW. The old conventional way is you'd have to go into your insert, you'd have to right click, you'd have a bank of inserts that would come up, you'd have to pick it. Again, is it a major difference? Yeah, when you're using lots and lots of plugins and lots of effects, drop and drag or drag and drop is certainly a hell of a lot faster than the old conventional way. So that's an awesome feature. Another thing to just think about as you're looking at this. Another great thing about Studio One that I really like is this thing called the macro toolbar, and it's up here. And it doesn't come with Studio One. It's a free download, by the way. You download it from the Exchange, which we'll talk about in a minute, but you'll end up with this little icon up here. And these macro toolbars, what you can do is you can customize different features, so you only have to click on one button for a command to take place. For example, I've added a save here. So instead of doing Control or Command S on a Mac or Control S on a PC, if you're a mouse guy like I am and you always got your hand on the mouse, if you don't want to come up to File and then Save, you could just create a macro and just click the button, save, real quick, or the split tool, or undo, or transform to audio, all these things that I've customized. And it's real easy to make a macro. All you do is you come into the group, you right click, hit new button, and here's our new button. You right click on the new button and you go to assign command, and now here is I don't know how many, but it looks to be tons of different commands that you can assign that new button to. So let's say I wanted to create a save button again. So I scroll down, I could just type in up here the word save. Okay, I could do save as. Let's do save as because I already have a save button if I want to save it as a new template. Save as, I hit OK. And now you can see it says save as. So now if I want to save my session as a different name, this one's called test session for this tutorial, but let's say I wanted to call it something different. I can go over to file and do it the old way. Or if I've got my hand on the mouse, it's easier just to go save as, and the save as dialog box pops up, just like it would if you went to file and save as. So it's just a one less step, one less click. Again, is it a big deal? Yeah, when you're doing hundreds and hundreds of clicks during the course of a session, saving every click, saving every second can count when you're working on big projects or you're on a deadline. So it's a nice little nifty thing. And again, it doesn't come when you first load up Studio One. You have to download the macro toolbar, and you'll see this little robot icon, hides the toolbar, exposes the toolbar. But you get that from the Exchange. And let's talk about the Exchange really quick. If you go under your browser over here and go down the file, you'll see a thing called the Exchange. Again, I think this is unique. I don't know any other DAW that has such a thing. Exchange, you go sign in here. What Exchange is, it's a place where you as a user or other Studio One users can upload everything from different effects chains to different groove templates, to different types of settings with effects. So if someone has a really cool, say, delay effect that they used for their guitar, you could upload it to the Exchange and people can download it for free. So you can get the presets, if you will, of different plugins and different effects, and you can share them with users. And again, it's all free. So let's say here's the macros. And if you scroll down here, all the different macros from the macro toolbar are all in here, people that have created different macros. And I believe down here you'll find something called the toolbar. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I don't want to take up too much time on this video trying to find it, but there is a download in here for the macro toolbar. And that's how you get it on here, because that's how I downloaded it. And maybe once I find it, I'll create a quick video to show you how to do that. I don't remember. It's been a month or so since I've done it. But again, so the macro toolbar is really cool. Again, a way to customize the things that you use the most. You can make little macros for, and you can speed up your workflow. So again, that's a really cool thing that I don't know any other DAW that has that. This one is huge to me. Transforming MIDI to audio, and I've created a macro for it because I use it so often. If you use MIDI instruments or virtual instruments as I do, and here's one I use easy keys, and here's a little piano part. Here's just a simple little piano groove that has nothing to do with this song. I just brought it in here for this example. That's just a little keyboard part, no big deal. But that's all MIDI. You can see it's all MIDI. Double click on it, it's all MIDI. Okay, so now bring up my mixer. Okay, so now let's say you didn't want to keep this as MIDI. You wanted to make that an audio track. Okay, real simple to do. All you do is you highlight the keyboard track. You can there's two ways to do it. You can right click on it and you can go to transform to audio track, and you'll get this dialog box. It'll pop up. And we'll cancel that. Or you can create a macro like I did, transform to audio. I use this all the time. Same dialog box. Really cool. So you don't have to now do a right click, choose another menu. Again, you want to save a step, create a macro. And now you have a dialog box and you can render the inserts. So if on this track I had, if I had some inserts and I had a bunch of, say, reverbs and delays or whatever, I don't, because I'm just using this for an example, but if you did, you can render the inserts so the audio track will have whatever effects that you have on your inserts on that audio. You can preserve the instrument track state, which I always keep checked, so you could go back and forth from audio to MIDI, and we'll talk about why you maybe want to do that in a minute. Or you can remove the instrument altogether. You can just render to audio and then get rid of the virtual instrument if you want. And then let's say you had some delay or some reverbs on this thing and you wanted to have a tail so you didn't lose, the reverb didn't get cut off at the end, you can do that as well. So you just hit OK and then watch what happens. Now you can see we have an audio track and you can still see the MIDI notes. It created an audio track in my mixer. Again, automatic. All I did was click that button and it did it all by itself. And now I have an audio track of this keyboard part, and here it is. Really nice. And if I want to go back to the instrument track, let's say I said, oh, you know, I want to change one of those notes. I don't like the way that a particular note sounds and I want to change the MIDI notes. All you do is right click, transform to instrument track. And there it goes, right back to MIDI. So now you have the MIDI back, and you can double click on it and you can take these notes and you can move them around or whatever you wanted to do. So it's really nice to be able to go back and forth between audio and MIDI like that. So let's go back to the audio, and then I'll show you the next thing I really love about Studio One. And again, I don't know that you could do this with any other DAW. Not this quick. I know in Pro Tools you could take an instrument track and you can record it to audio, but you have to create another track, arm it, route the MIDI track out to the audio track, hit record, play it in real time. So it can be done, but it takes a heck of a lot longer, and then to go back and forth is not as streamlined as this. This is beautiful how they did this. So now let's take a look at, okay, we have an audio track. The next thing I want to show you really quick is I want to show you this thing called event effects. So this is an event, right? Right here is an event. Or, you know, if you think of it in Pro Tools, they called it a region or a clip. It's the same thing. They call it in Studio One an event. So let's say in a part of this event, let's say at the end here, you wanted to have a delay on it, but you didn't want to have delay on the rest of the track. You can use what, you know, everyone knows is automation. You could put an insert of a delay. You can pick the points. You can automate when the delay comes in and goes out. You can do all of that stuff. or to me, that's now considered the long way to do things. You can now use what's called an event effect to put a delay on a certain part. Let's say on this last note, as we talked about, that note, but the rest of it we don't want to have delayed. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out here to that last note. We're going to put our cursor right there, and we're going to either right click on our mouse wheel and take our split tool, or I call it a blade, but they call it a split tool. I'm going to take the snap off so I don't snap to the grid, and I'm going to put a split right there. I'll put the snap back on, and now I'm going to go back to my pointer tool, and now I have two different events here. Okay, so the last note is its own separate event. Okay, so now I want to take and I want to put a delay just on that event. So I go over to my effects. We're going to go to, let's say, the beat delay, which I really like, and I think just the ping pong I like. So let's take the beat delay, and what we're going to do, if you look over here, event effect enable. So we're going to enable that. So that means that this event that we've highlighted is now enabled. Let me get my cursor over there for you. Okay. If I click on the other event over here, you can see that it went away. The event effect went away. If I want to put an event effect on that, I would have to click enable again. But just for this one event where we want to put the delay, it's disabled. Enable it, and then right in this box, I'm going to drag and drop my beat delay. So I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to drop it here, and now I have a beat delay. And let's put the ping pong on, quarter notes, and it'll make it obvious. So now let's watch what happens when I play this back and we get to this one part. Hear the delay? Right? Beautiful, right? Let's listen to it again quickly. Here's the part without the delay. So again, that is to me so much easier and so much more streamlined than going ahead and creating automation the old-fashioned way, as I call it. So that's another really nice thing, and you could do that with as many tracks and as many events as you want. You could cut this keyboard out in 5 or 6 different pieces, and you could put different effects on different events just by using this event effect, which is really, really cool. And again, if you want to get rid of it, it's not permanent. All you do, and you can actually render it to the tracks. And now let's say I want to render that delay and keep it on there all the time. I would just hit render, or I can just remove it. So they make this really, really streamlined. What I love about Studio One is things are very logically thought out, and they make things as quick and as easy as possible. So that's event effects. So that is, for me, the 15 reasons, and I think there's 15 there. We'll number them on the screen for you, but there's 15 different reasons why I really like Studio One. And I know I've only been using this a couple of months, and I know that guys that are watching this that are pro users of Studio One are probably saying, God, there's probably 50 or 60 more reasons, and I'm sure there are. But for me, Studio One, those are the things that jumped out at me in the first couple of months, and there's so many more things I can get into, but this video is already running long. So I just wanted to share those things with you. If you're really thinking about a different DAW, take a look at Studio One. There's a lot of different things about Studio One that are different, that are more intuitive, that are more 2013, if you will, than most DAWs that are out there on the market as the making of this video. So anyway, thanks for your time. I hope this was helpful. Please leave a comment below. Like this video if you could. Check us out at visionrecordingstudios.com for all our different services that we offer, mixing, mastering, recording, so on and so forth. Also, another great resource for home studio guys and project studio guys, especially people that are using Presonus gear. If you go over to my friend Johnny, thehomestudiotrainer.com, another wonderful resource. Guys, putting in a lot of time to help a lot of people. He's a real friendly guy, easy to work with, and there's a lot of great information there. Whether you use Presonus gear or not, all his information can translate to different DAWs, different hardware and software. But if you want to learn about Studio One and Presonus stuff, he kind of focuses on that, and he does a really, really good job. So again, check out homestudiotrainer.com. Check us out on our YouTube channel. Check us out on our Facebook page. Check out visionrecordingstudios.com. And again, if you have any questions, you feel free to email me at visionrecordingstudios@yahoo.com. I'd be more than happy to help. And thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Take care.